Now the result. I, Sir Graham Brady, the returning officer for the Conservative and Unionist Party leadership election, declare that the total number of eligible voters was 172,437. The turnout in the election was 82.6%. The total number of votes rejected was 654. The total number of valid votes given to each candidate was as follows. Rishi Sunak, 60,399. Liz Truss, 81,326. Therefore, I give notice that Liz Truss is elected as the leader of the Conservative and Unionist Party. We'll come up on stage.
Well, thank you, Sir Graham. It's an honour to be elected as leader of the Conservative and Unionist Party. I'd like to thank the 1922 committee, the party chairman and the Conservative Party for organising one of the longest job interviews in history. Thank you very much. I'd also like to thank my family, my friends, my political colleagues and all of those who helped on this campaign. I'm incredibly grateful for all of your support. I'd like to pay tribute to my fellow candidates, particularly Rishi Sunak. It's been a hard-fought campaign. I think we have shown the depth and breadth of talent in our Conservative Party. And I also want to thank our outgoing leader, my friend, Boris Johnson. Boris, you got Brexit done. You crushed Jeremy Corbyn. You rolled out the vaccine and you stood up to Vladimir Putin. You were admired from Kiev to Carlisle. Friends and colleagues, thank you for putting your faith in me to lead our great Conservative Party, the greatest political party on earth. I know that our beliefs resonate with the British people. Our beliefs in freedom, in the ability to control your own life, in low taxes, in personal responsibility. And I know that's why people voted for us in such numbers in 2019. And as your party leader, I intend to deliver what we promised those voters right across our great country. During this leadership campaign, I campaigned as a Conservative and I will govern as a Conservative. And my friends, we need to show that we will deliver over the next 2 years. I will deliver a bold plan to cut taxes and grow our economy. I will deliver on the energy crisis, dealing with people's energy bills but also dealing with the long-term issues we have on energy supply. And I will deliver on the National Health Service. But we all will deliver for our country. And I will make sure that we use all the fantastic talents of the Conservative Party, our brilliant members of Parliament and peers, our fantastic councillors, our MSs, our MSPs, all of our councillors and activists and members right across our country. Because, my friends, I know that we will deliver, we will deliver, and we will deliver. And we will deliver a great victory for the Conservative Party in 2024. Thank you. Thank you.
So Liz Truss is the new leader of the Conservative Party in the United Kingdom, which in turn means that she is the new Prime Minister of the United Kingdom as well. 47-year-old Liz Truss was the Foreign Minister under Boris Johnson. She had promised to act quickly to tackle Britain's cost of living crisis. She'd promised to come up with a plan quickly to tackle rising energy bills and securing the future fuel supplies. This particularly important since the citizens in the UK have been facing rising energy bills since the Ukraine war, and as winter approaches, the issue could become even more contentious in the country. She signaled during her leadership campaign that she would challenge a convention by scrapping tax increases and cutting other levies that some economists say would fuel inflation. Much of that is what she underlined today as well, as she took the stage after it was announced that she had defeated Rishi Sunak to take the top job in the party as well as in the country. The most, she has spoken about, interestingly, how she has appeared for the longest job interview perhaps in the history of the UK. This alluding to the hustings and the final voting that took place by over 160,000 members of the Conservative Party spread across the country who have voted for this. The difference of votes between the two being about 20,000. Let me go across to Radhika Iyer, who's joining us from outside the Queen Elizabeth Centre where this announcement was made. Radhika, this announcement perhaps on expected lines, this is what was being said by commentators for some time now, that Liz Truss has edged past Rishi Sunak. But the vote difference, how does it count over here?
Well, it doesn't really matter now because the vote is quite decisive. She's won by 57.4% of the votes, which means she is clearly the new Prime Minister. She has a mandate. She's been chosen. And you saw the standing ovation within the Conservative Party just after she ended her speech. So clearly, Liz Truss is the new Prime Minister. With the fact that several rounds of the contest happened, one was thinking that she would win by about 60% and Rishi Sunak would get about 40%. So somewhere there, not such a dramatic change or upset that Rishi has managed to make, very much on expected lines. What will happen now is she will be travelling to Scotland to sort of validate her announcement, meet with the Queen first, who will then lead her to become the Prime Minister of this country. She will also be the Conservative leader. And for many reasons, the Labour Party has been saying that they would be quite happy with Liz Truss coming on board as Prime Minister, because they have always viewed Liz Truss as a slightly weaker candidate than Rishi Sunak from Labour point of view, because they felt that Rishi Sunak was more competent to sort of deal with the economic crisis that is on hand for Britain. I'm going to get you some scenes from where I am right now to just show you the scenes on the streets of London. This is the heart of London, where the Parliament is on one end. You have people who have just taken a break from their working schedules to just come and watch what's happening. It's a big political event that's going on here in London. So there's a lot of people. Let me just switch this across to show you. Not able to for some reason. All right. So what's going to happen next is that she will take over and then face the Prime Minister's questions on Wednesday. But today evening, Liz Truss will be forming her cabinet, and her cabinet is looking quite diverse already, with the potential names being Nazim Zahawi, some other non-white faces who are going to be in her cabinet. Whether Rishi Sunak will feature in her cabinet, will he accept that position, is something we will have to wait and watch. What does this mean for India? India and Britain are in a very, very interesting relationship at the moment from trade point of view. India just took over Britain yesterday by becoming the 5th largest economy, and Britain has fallen to the 6th place, which perhaps is unprecedented. And we've used the word unprecedented so many times in our coverage from Britain in the last some time, with so many new changes happening. This essentially means that Britain will look at India very, very differently as opposed to earlier. There is a free trade agreement that is being negotiated at the moment. We know that October next month is going to be the deadline for the free trade agreement to be announced. Whether Liz Truss will keep that focus on India during this free trade agreement is something that India would be keenly watching, is something that the Indian diaspora here would be keenly watching. India's investment here in Britain has gone up, whereas Britain's investment in India has dipped quite significantly. These are aspects that the negotiating team is keeping in mind while they design this free trade agreement. So what Liz Truss policies are going to be towards Commonwealth, towards nations such as India, who are such powerful economies, emerging to be forces which one would reckon with. On the other hand, we also have the Labour Party, which is hoping that general elections will be anytime soon. It will be about 1.5 years that Britain will have Liz Truss as Prime Minister before there is another general election. But the cost of living crisis here in Britain is at its peak. It is officially declared as a national emergency. More than 140% rise in people desperately calling to seek help, either by cash or by any means or schemes, is noticed. And so Liz Truss has been saying that she would freeze energy bills, while economists say that this might just burden the exchequer even more, might burden the state even more. Policy-wise, it seems like a freebie that people are very excited about. Whether she will do it or not, we don't know. But she has just mentioned in her speech just after being announced as Prime Minister that she would bring out a bold plan to cut taxes.
Radhika, I also understand that the Queen is in Scotland. So will Liz Truss be travelling to Scotland for any further ceremonies like swearing in?
Not the swearing in, but certainly tomorrow Liz Truss will be travelling to Scotland to actually officially form what is called the kissing of hands ceremony. So the Queen will actually meet with the Prime Minister. She will kiss her hands, and that is the official ceremony where the Queen has led Liz Truss to become the Prime Minister. So that happens tomorrow. Today, she will be forming her cabinet, somewhat officially forming her cabinet. Tomorrow, Liz Truss meets with the Queen in Scotland. Day after, in the Parliament on Wednesday, the 7th of September, Liz Truss will face the Prime Minister question hour, where Labour will question her. The Tory party has clearly chosen a politician over someone who has been the exchequer and who has managed the COVID pandemic quite well, which I'm talking about is Rishi Sunak. Economists have been saying that Rishi Sunak's schemes during the COVID pandemic have been quite validated, have been quite good to keep the inflation under control. However, it was not just a choice to make to the new Prime Minister, but to also keep the party together, to have somebody who would be a good politician, and in that sense, to not sound or seem like a rebel, which any political party doesn't like. Rishi Sunak had actually led the spate of resignations to bring down the Boris Johnson government, to bring down Boris Johnson as the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Just after he made that resignation and brought out that scathing letter, close to 60 cabinet ministers also resigned. So perhaps the Conservative Party has viewed Rishi Sunak as a rebel. They possibly also didn't like the fact that there were so many during the campaign, which was so bitterly fought between two Conservative members, Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak. There were so many references made to the fact that Rishi Sunak comes from a private school, is someone who's a multimillionaire, somebody who is the son-in-law of Infosys's Narayan Murthy, whose daughter, Akshata Murthy, has been under the scanner for her tax receipts and her confirmations that were made. Whereas on the other hand, you have a Liz Truss, who of course voted to remain in Europe. She's not a Brexiteer. But having said that, she has been to a state school. She's been seen as somebody who has come from a more modest background than Rishi Sunak, a woman, and somebody who also has been constantly towing the party line and seen often, as critics would put it, as a mediocre, someone who hasn't been quite aggressive. So perhaps all of these reasons went in her favor. A total number of 160,000 Conservative members voted, and Liz Truss won with just over 20,000 votes over Rishi Sunak.
All right, Radhika, just stay on with us. And you were referring to some of the reasons why Rishi Sunak lost this race. We have some of those graphics ready with pointers explaining exactly what perhaps could have gone wrong with Rishi Sunak's campaign there. And as Radhika is pointing out, first of all, the fact that Rishi Sunak was one of the first few persons to have resigned from Boris Johnson's cabinet. As Radhika was pointing out, many in the party perhaps viewed him as a rebel. That was one of the major reasons. That could have been one of the major reasons. Again, his campaign video that then later on surfaced ready for Rishi. Also, it was alleged that it was ready much before Boris Johnson's resignation as well. So many believed that this was well planned in advance by Rishi Sunak. Some of the reasons there, perhaps one can only speculate what could have led to the fact that Rishi Sunak, who started off with as the front runner, perhaps lagged behind Liz Truss just at the fag end, the final lap, so to speak, of this challenge. There was some tax evasion charges against his wife Akshata as well. That also led to a lot of conversation around the couple. Their wealth also became some sort of an eyesore when the country was reeling, and the people, especially in the country, were reeling through reeling under inflation as well as high energy bills as well. Let me go across now to our two guests joining us here on the show. Nicholas Nugent, a UK journalist and former BBC editor, and Dorab Supariwala, editorial advisor of NDTV. Nicholas, coming first to you. Do you see, first of all, any significant statement that Liz Truss has made today when she took the stage after her name being announced as the leader of the party?
Well, I don't think she said very much on accepting the decision of the party. She said some rather more interesting things in the last few days, especially on an interview she gave yesterday morning, where she promised to address the cost of living crisis within 1 week. So subject to her being elected, of course. Now we know she has been elected by the party. We can expect some pretty swift moves, because she takes office at one of the most difficult times for Britain that I can remember, certainly in recent years, especially economically, and what I've described as the cost of living crisis. So we are eagerly waiting to know how she addresses a crisis that has frankly brought a significant number of British people to the edge of poverty, or to the situation of not being able to pay their fuel bills. So, she takes office tomorrow, technically, and her first test is already set. So she needs to be able to satisfy the people that she can pass that test pretty swiftly. It's a severe economic crisis, and only she can only she can rescue the situation now that she has the power to do so. But please remember, she was elected by 60,000 people. That's the number of Conservative Party members who voted for her. So the party had put their trust in her. The big question now is whether the people of the country at large put their trust in her. That's a very big challenge that she has to confront.
I'll come back to you on that count. What is the perception on the ground of Liz Truss with the people? But before that, let me go across to Dorab Supariwala. Sir, first of all, how do you see Liz Truss being able to live up to all the expectations as far as the economy is concerned? What so far has she said which could make the people believe that she could perhaps fix things for them?
Before I answer your question, I'd like to say hello to Nick, who I'm seeing after almost 25 years. We used to meet in Rahul Bedi's house many years ago. I think Nick has told you exactly what, politicians make promises, then they try and keep the ones they can. I think it was Lenin who once said that promises are like pie crusts, made only to be broken. So I don't think she'll do what she can. The inflation is probably the highest in 40 years.
Yes.
Electricity prices out of control, food prices out of control. So I think it's a very tough job. I think it's a poison chalice. To take on this job at this time is a very tough job. But then, ambition has no bounds. And you think you can do something. And if you can make a difference, then I think you are remembered as a prime minister for a long time, rather than one of those anonymous prime ministers who come in and are forgotten. But it's an incredible challenge that she's taking on. The National Health Service, I think after the pandemic, the economy just hasn't recovered. And in the meantime comes the Ukraine war and all kinds of problems. The interest rates are going up. I mean, everything is the highest it's ever been. So it's a very tough job.
Nicholas, do you think the Conservative Party has, while voting, kept in mind that she will be in place for a year and a half, after which the UK will go in for elections? Is she the right person to lead the party to the next elections as well? And what is the kind of perception people on the ground have of Liz Truss?
Well, that question you're asking me has run through my mind as well. Is she an election winner? After all, that was Boris Johnson's main success, was he took the party to the largest majority for many years. Whether Liz Truss has that same approval rating in the country at large, who can tell? I mean, that's really what her challenge is over the next 2 years. I think it's 2.5 years before she has to hold an election. At the moment, I would question it because she hasn't really made her mark amongst the British people. Her current job, or her job until today, was as Foreign Secretary, which is not something that people would tend to judge her by, whereas the loser, Rishi Sunak, has had plenty for the people to judge him by. So what I'm telling you in a way is that I believe that Rishi Sunak would have had a better chance of leading the Conservative Party back to victory in 2.5 years' time. But that's not to be. Rishi has been defeated. And let me say something about that as well. Your reporter, Radhika, talked about him being a rebel. I would use a stronger word of disloyal, because that's how the party members see it. He stabbed Boris Johnson in the back, and that's why they haven't chosen him. I think that's the biggest single factor. Because frankly, if you judge by what the two candidates, Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak, have been saying at their hustings and saying in newspaper articles, I would have thought Rishi Sunak was the one who came across with a much stronger command of economic affairs. He has, after all, been the Minister of Finance or Chancellor of the Exchequer for the last 2 years. He's the one that people, I think, would have had more confidence in. But I am guessing, and I may be wrong, and it may be that Liz Truss, who has a more populist appeal, it may be that she has won because they think she will lead the party to victory. Why else would they have voted for her? Unless they think she is the one who can keep the party in power. It is, after all, an electoral contest. It's all political. It's highly political. And the only people who voted this time, that 172,000 or so, they have as their priority concern to keep the Conservative Party in power. Now that responsibility of keeping the party in power is entrusted to the new Prime Minister. We shall see. At the moment, I'm not sure she could lead the party to success. But frankly, how she handles the economic challenges over the next few days will determine that. And I may be wrong in my preliminary assessment, and she may persuade us that she's got what it takes. She becomes a good Prime Minister in, shall I say, in the model of Margaret Thatcher, who after all ruled for many, many years. And in that case, they will vote for her again. Early days, we'll see.
All right. The party has spoken, but what about the people on the ground? Radhika, can you give us a sense of what people around you are saying? Are these all supporters of the Conservative Party outside over there, or is there a mix of people you've been able to speak with?
I'm going to turn around so you can see the scenes just outside Queen Elizabeth Centre. This is just across the Parliament. There's a lot of music, there's a lot of drama, as always when there is a big political event that happens in London. Most of these people are ridiculing the Conservative Party. These are protesters who are asking for very tough climate changes. These are protesters who are protesting against the Tories' continuity in power. These are people who are also supporters of the Labour Party. And coming back to the points that Nicholas was making, in fact, I had a question for Nicholas. Hi, Nicholas, this is Radhika. The point you made was a good segue for me to lead to my next question, or the next aspect, which perhaps is very relevant for us to discuss here, which is obviously the Conservative parties were not just looking for a Prime Minister for the United Kingdom or a solution giver or somebody who would perform as an administrator, but also were looking for the leader of the Conservatives, which is they wanted a sharp politician, and unfortunately the two are very different, the solution giver and the politician, in the times that we live in. So given the fact that Liz Truss has come on board as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, does this make life easier for the Labour Party now?
Well, just as I'm not ready to make the judgment about Liz Truss and her electability or her ability to lead the party to victory, it's early days. I mean, I have heard the opinion expressed by Labour Party supporters that Liz Truss will be easier to beat than Rishi Sunak. Really, for the reasons I just mentioned, because Rishi inspires confidence for his management of the economy. And I'm not saying similar about Liz Truss. So, frankly, if you do want my opinion at this stage, I think the Labour Party will be relatively pleased that Liz Truss could be easier to beat. But once again, I'm going to qualify that by saying everything may change. She might come up with a sort of miraculous programme of debt relief and tax reduction and incentives. And if she does that, then where are Labour Party left? I mean, what we're expecting is her to have taken a page out of the Labour Party's policy in capping the price of energy in Britain. Now, that's a slightly technical issue, but if she's really borrowing her clothes from the opposition Labour Party, then who can tell? You can tell, because I don't know. A lot depends on the first week and indeed the early days of her premiership. But at this stage, I think a Labour Party reaction could be good. She's easier for us to beat. But I might change my opinion on that within a week or two.
All right. Durab, if Rishi Sunak had so much going for him, and as Nick is pointing out, that perhaps he could have been a better person to lead the party into the next elections, what do you think went wrong for him?
Well, I think, the system of electing prime ministers is so unusual that No country in the world has a system like this. But the Tories have shifted from one time when 5 men gathered together and chose a prime minister to the time when the MPs chose the prime minister to now the entire party. You know, I'm sorry to take you back a few hundred years, but there was a man called Edmund Burke who wrote a letter to the electors of Bristol where he said, your representative, I'm not quoting exactly, your representative owes you not only his industry but also his judgment, but he sacrifices and badly serves you if he follows your opinion. And MPs elected, we have representative democracy, which means you elect somebody and they elect a leader. Here, don't forget, who's the Conservative Party voters? They're old, they're white, they are male, they're often semi-rural. They are about as conservative as you can get. I mean, there was no chance. And don't forget, it is the first time that a non-white is standing for election. So I think, you know, as the great Enoch Powell, once said when he lost an election, what am I doing? I am leaving my visiting card behind, which means the next time a non-white comes, he will probably have a better chance. I don't know that Britain is ready at the moment for a non-white prime minister.
Radhika?
But the next time round, the position will improve. I'm sorry, there's one more thing I'd like to say
Go ahead.
About Liz Truss. You know, the Tories are an incredibly ruthless party. They've got known as the night of the long knives. If they find she can't win, the 1922 committee will get rid of her. I mean, the Tories are not gentlemen. They're gentlemen on the outside. They're ruthless on the inside. I think there is no party in Britain more ruthless than the Tories. They want to win. If this person can't take them to victory, he or she is out. So I think if she performs, she'll stay. If she doesn't perform, they will get rid of her before she loses an election.
All right, pretty much like perform or perish. Radhika, what is the sense you get on the ground from people around you about what went wrong for Rishi Sunak?
Okay, you know what I'm going to do is to just hop across and get a few opinions. And I see a lot of people having lunch. It's lunch hour. And are you someone who works presumably nearby? No, you don't want to be interviewed. There are a lot of protesters around. There is a lot of banter that's going on Twitter, where a lot of people are criticizing Liz's, the Conservative choice of having Liz on board as Prime Minister. I'm just going to go across. Hi, can I have a chat with you? I'm just trying to ask people their reaction to the fact that Liz is now Prime Minister. What are your thoughts? What do you do?
I'm an electronic engineer.
Okay.
Run my own business. But I think the result was as expected. So let's just hope she can make a difference.
No surprise, but are you happy?
Not really. Personally, I wanted Rishi, but
why?
I just think due to the money factor of things, and he'd be wiser with what to do with money, especially in this, failing economy as it is now. But it is what it is, so we've just got to accept it and hope that everything goes okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to get another opinion. Are you happy to share a comment, sir? Okay. Tell me your name and what do you do here?
I'm George Kulasingam. I just come to see.
You're just standing by?
Yeah, standing by.
What do you do for a living?
I'm an accountant by profession. Yeah.
An accountant. Are you happy with the announcement that Liz Truss is now Prime Minister?
Well, that's the selection of the Conservative Party. I'm not expressing any opinions.
Did you have a choice personally if you were?
I'm not a member of the Conservative Party, so I have no choice.
But as a voter, would you have wanted to pick a name?
That's private to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
All
Thank you. So it's interesting to see a lot of people just taking a break from their work desk.
Okay.
But you heard it from one such engineer who said that personally he felt that Rishi would be good with money in hand, given the crisis that Britain is in.
Yes, we heard that opinion. Many thanks, Radhika, for getting us those details from London. Many thanks to Nick and the RAF for joining us here on this discussion as well. Liz Truss is going to be the new Prime Minister of UK. She's been elected as the party leader by the Conservative Party.